Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. From the mid-90s to the 2000s, Jim Carrey was arguably the most well-known name in comedy outside of probably Robin Williams, dominating the box office with many classics like Ace Ventura, The Mask, The Truman Show, Liar Liar, and many, many others. And although I am a fan of pretty much everything I've seen him in, one of my personal favourites has always been A Series of Unfortunate Events, being based on the massively popular book series A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket, aka Brett Holquist, from the late 90s to the early 2000s. The movie, like many of its counterparts aimed towards younger children, had a tie-in game. And as we know, most tie-in games tend to be pretty average at best. So let's see if this game is actually any good, or if it's an unfortunate event.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Like a lot of tie-in games, it doesn't follow everything in the movie one-to-one, which in this case might be for the best. But overall, all the major scenes and events are going to be pretty much encountered here. Before getting into the gameplay though, you'll notice first and foremost the visual style of this game is nearly perfect to its source material. With that Victorian Gothic-like aesthetic, you'll notice the game looks incredible, reminding me both of that Nightmare Before Christmas game and also Don't Starve. It's hard to fault the overall presentation here. If I was to criticize anything about the game's visuals, it's actually more to do with its animations, as some of them can be a little bit too over the top. Most of them are actually quite well done. However, if you look at Sunny when she bites things, she's a gremlin, and it makes me laugh, but it also scares the shit out of me.
I'll bite your legs off!
The core cast of Olaf, Violet, and Klaus are all voiced by their movie counterparts, which really helps sell this game as punching above its weight. Though, like the animations, I do have some criticisms, and Liam Aiken's performance feels very bored, as if he doesn't really want to be there. It is in line with his movie performance as someone who's a little bit disinterested in what's going on, especially with what's happened. However, he seems really just unenthusiastic, even for the game. Also, as an interesting note, they had Tim Curry come in to replace Jude Law as Lemony Snicket, and it's a change I wouldn't say is better or worse, as both do a really good job in the role, and I don't know who I prefer. If you have a preference, let me know in the comment section below. Just to continue with this game's overall presentation, its OST is surprisingly good. I wouldn't say every track is necessarily the best thing you'll ever hear, but for the most part, the music does a damn near perfect job of capturing the very essence of what A Series of Unfortunate Events is all about. Its orchestral score is composed by Jeremy Soule. I do apologize, I probably butchered his name. Although you might not know his name, I'll be damned if you don't know his work. From the Putt-Putt games to the Elder Scrolls games. Yes, Skyrim. That was him. Harry Potter and the Guild War games. Dude is an absolute monster in this industry. However, from my research, it seems he retired from writing music professionally relatively early on. And although I wish him a happy retirement, I do hope he comes back one day because his work is incredible and I would love to hear more of it. However, I wouldn't say the entire presentation is flawless, as the game's sound effects are probably the weakest part. I wouldn't say they're anything offensive, but they are definitely a little more cartoony in their approach. I do understand that this is a game designed for younger audiences, and especially given when it was made, so you don't necessarily expect that punch to the sound effects, but it would have been nice just to have a little bit more oomph to them. Getting into the gameplay, A Series of Unfortunate Events is a little more than you would expect on the surface, and although it could have just stuck to the tried and true collectathon third-person action style that most tie-in games did at the time, which by all means it is technically doing, they were willing to change things up a little bit by adding some more puzzle and exploration elements rather than just having a focus on straight up collecting and combat. And although there are plenty of those, the gameplay itself has a pretty decent balance between everything that I could ask for. From the 2D platforming sections where you would play as Sunny, to the stealth sections where you would play as everybody, the combat sections that would normally be handled by Klaus, and the puzzle sections that would typically be handled by Violet. It fits the characters well and helps the characters translate into the game world rather than having them be there just for set dressing. It makes everything feel just more cohesive. The game's controls are relatively responsive, but I wouldn't say it's a flawless experience. It can feel a little more floaty than you would like from time to time, and that is the nature of games from this era. However, it can make things feel a little more finicky than you would like when it comes to its general movement. I would also say the game's puzzles are lacking in a bit of depth, as they basically boil down to find X objects in the world, put them together for the inventing portion of the solution, which in turn creates the item to basically auto-solve any puzzle or obstacle you're going to run into. I wouldn't have minded if the inventing side of things was a little more in depth rather than just rotating an item until you would get a marker pop up saying you can now place the item you need to and just being done with it. It is certainly a functional system, and the game makes it relatively easy easy to figure out where the items you'll need to invent are located, almost treating the game as an old school point and click, which probably would have been the coolest way to do this game anyway, and actually kind of makes me wish they did. The combat also doesn't have a ton of depth, however it isn't a core focus, so I can give the game a bit of a pass here, as overall it feels like instead of having the combat be constant throughout the game, they wanted to have the combat sections feel a bit more impactful and having them be more unique. And this is especially true in the early game, as the first few real fights you get into all play pretty differently, from the spider battle teaching you about range and timing, while the fight in the kitchen is more of a traditional slog. Fighting Olaf's henchmen throughout his house is also a nice break to the exploration, as they are typically short, contained encounters. This really helps when you have to traverse through the admittedly small levels. It helps keep the action moving. It makes me feel as if there's always something to do without being too much busy work. There is a little bit too much back and forth for my liking, but having these encounters within the game definitely helps make this less of an issue. Basically covering 3 books, we will go from Count Olaf's abode to Uncle Monty's and Aunt Josephine's. Each of these levels will typically take you an hour or two max to beat, with them all using a mix of the gameplay elements I mentioned before, the 2D sections, the puzzle and the combat, which really helps things not overstay their welcome. And yes, even though it is a shorter game, it can get a little bit frustrating from time to time when you have to just constantly do the same thing over and over again. The game, like its movie counterpart, has a lot of little issues that stop it from being an all-time great. If I had to level any major complaints at the game, it's the fact it doesn't necessarily delve into the book side of the story all that much. And I understand that screenplays are definitely going to be a lot more limited than books. That's an argument for another time. But given the fact this is a game and they could have drawn from the books, it would have been nice if they had done it a little bit more. The game isn't really going to give you the story of a series of unfortunate events, so I highly recommend reading the books. But if you're someone who's like, oh, reading is stinky and nerdy, fuck that, watch the Netflix series. It's pretty solid. It's not the best thing in the world, but I'll take it over nothing. So with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you like this look back at the Series of Unfortunate Events tie-in game. If you've read the books or watched the TV series, or if you like me and adore the movie, let me know. What's your favorite quote from the movie? I can't really decide, but I think my favorite is, "Where's the roast beef?" It's Swedish for beef that is roasted. I've always fucking just adored that line. Jim Carrey is brilliant. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to go that extra step, you can hit the subscribe button. If you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi from just $8 a month like these lovely people here. And with that, I hope you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.